Welcome to the Strange and Unexplained podcast. I'm your host, Ben Carter, and in today's episode, we're tuning into a sound that's been heard but never fully understood. A low, persistent hum reported from remote forests, quiet suburbs, and even beneath the ocean. No one can explain where it comes from. No machine can capture its true origin. But for those who hear it, it's impossible to ignore. What is the global hum? And why does it seem to follow us, even when there's nothing there? The earliest whispers of something like the hum can be traced far beyond modern headlines into the dust of ancient history and myth. In Hindu cosmology, the universe is said to have begun not with a bang, but with a sound. Not just any sound, but a vibration. The Om, a deep, resonating tone that permeates everything. To ancient sages, it was not symbolic, it was literal. The sound that underlies all existence. In Tibetan Buddhist practice, monks chant low, rumbling mantras said to align the body with the frequency of the cosmos. Their rituals aren't just spiritual, they are vibrational. Even the Aboriginal Dreamtime tells of song lines, a network of sacred paths across Australia said to be sung into existence by ancestral beings. These stories speak of landscapes shaped not by force, but by resonance, by the sound of creation itself. In ancient Greece, Pythagoras theorized that celestial bodies produced a music of the spheres, an inaudible harmony born from the orbital movements of planets. He believed that understanding this cosmic symphony was the key to unlocking divine knowledge. The idea wasn't just poetic. To many ancient cultures, sound was power. It could heal, destroy, or unveil hidden truths. But what happens when that power turns unsettling? By the medieval period, strange auditory phenomena began appearing in written records, descriptions of low, droning noises coming from nowhere. Chroniclers referred to them as sky trumpets or earth groans, and they were usually interpreted as omens. In 12th century England, townsfolk reported hearing a thunder that did not end, followed by days of silence and crop failure. Similar accounts appear in China's dynastic histories and in the oral traditions of the Sami people of northern Scandinavia. These weren't random sounds. They were felt inside the bones, deep in the chest. Witnesses described them as unnatural, unnerving, almost alive, a force, not just a sound. And that's the thread that weaves from past to present, that this isn't just noise, it's something else, something ancient, something persistent. Fast forward to the modern age, and the reports become more clinical, but no less disturbing. In the 1970s, people in Bristol, England, began complaining of a mysterious humming noise, low frequency, continuous and inescapable. It kept them up at night, induced nausea, and in some cases, triggered panic attacks. Local authorities investigated but found nothing. No mechanical source, no faulty wiring, no underground equipment. They called it the Bristol hum. It was just the beginning. What started in Bristol soon echoed across the globe. Taos, New Mexico, Windsor, Ontario, Kokomo, Indiana, Auckland, New Zealand. Residents in each of these places reported hearing a strange, low-frequency noise, sometimes described as a throbbing, other times like a distant idling engine. What made it more unnerving was that most people couldn't hear it at all. Only a small percentage, estimated at 2 to 4% of the population, seem to perceive it. They're called hearers, and what they describe is eerily consistent. The hum isn't just heard, it's felt. A low buzz that rattles the ribcage, a pressure in the skull like being submerged. Sleep becomes elusive. Concentration breaks down. For some it's a minor annoyance. For others, it's a daily torment. In Taos, a formal investigation was launched in 1993. Scientists from Los Alamos National Laboratory, the University of New Mexico, and Sandia National Laboratories conducted interviews, acoustic tests, and environmental scans. They confirmed that something unusual was being reported, but could find no definitive cause. Sound meters picked up nothing that matched the hum's description. No industrial sources could be identified. Electromagnetic readings were inconclusive. The case went cold. But the hum did not stop. In Windsor, Ontario, complaints reached such a fever pitch that the Canadian government partnered with acoustic experts to investigate. They traced the vibrations to Zug Island, a heavily industrialized zone across the river in Michigan. But when authorities requested access to conduct further studies, they were denied. The island was private property. No data. No explanation. The hum continued. Then came the psychological toll. Hearers began describing worsening symptoms: anxiety, insomnia, migraines, even suicidal thoughts. Some moved to other towns, hoping to escape. A few claimed they could feel the hum follow them, as if tethered to their bodies rather than a location. Medical professionals were baffled. Audiologists found no consistent hearing abnormalities. Psychologists could not link the reports to mass hysteria. Hearers were spread across different continents, unaware of each other's experiences. The only unifying factor seemed to be the sound itself, or whatever force was simulating it. Theories began to surface: subterranean military operations, secret communications arrays, industrial machinery tuned to infrasound. Some blamed wind turbines or high-pressure gas lines. Others suspected electromagnetic pulses, weaponized frequencies, or covert crowd control experiments. But none of these fully accounted for the phenomenon's persistence, its selectivity, or its emotional impact. And then came the twist: cases where the hum was heard by multiple people in the same area, but still left no trace on recording devices, as if the sound existed not in the air, but in the listener. Not a wave, but a trigger. A frequency not of the ears, but of the brain. No conclusive evidence, no source, just a growing silence between the answers, and an invisible resonance that refuses to go away. As the reports multiplied, so did the contradictions. In many documented hum cases, sound engineers deployed sensitive equipment: oscilloscopes, low-frequency microphones, seismic sensors, and yet again and again they detected nothing. The air was still, the ground was quiet. But the complaints continued. In a 2006 study conducted in the UK, scientists attempted to record the hum in multiple affected regions. What they found was a range of conflicting data. Subtle vibrations in some areas, electromagnetic spikes in others, but never a consistent, replicable signal. In some towns, the hum would inexplicably stop, only to reappear months later, unchanged, like a ghost that couldn't be exorcised. By the 2010s, experts began drawing lines between the hum and a lesser-known phenomenon: infrasound. These are sound waves that exist below the threshold of human hearing, typically under 20 Hz. While we can't consciously detect them, infrasound can influence the body and mind. It's been linked to nausea, anxiety, dizziness, and even the sensation of dread. Some theorists pointed out that natural events like earthquakes, ocean waves, and even volcanic activity can produce infrasound. So can man-made sources: turbines, engines, sonar arrays, underground drills. Could the hum be a byproduct of modern infrastructure, an unintended side effect of a hyper-connected world? Others weren't so sure. There are cases where all those elements are absent, where no underground activity exists, no turbines turn, no construction echoes for miles. And still, the hum persists. In 2011, British researcher Glenn Macpherson launched the World Hum Map, a crowdsourced database where hearers could log their experiences. The map revealed clusters, mysterious concentrations of reports in parts of the UK, North America, and coastal Australia. The data showed no consistent industrial cause. But something more alarming surfaced. Many hearers described the hum not as a single sound, but as a message. Not in words, but in pressure, in rhythm, in pulses that made them feel watched. A few went further. They said the hum came at specific times, usually late at night or in the early hours before dawn, that it had a cycle, that it followed a pattern, that it wasn't random. And then came the blackout zones, places where the hum should be heard but isn't. Towns near major infrastructure that remain silent, remote villages that hear it in unison for a week, and then never again. Some began to suspect a form of targeting. Others believed the hum wasn't meant for humans at all, that we were simply collateral, biological antennas picking up something never meant for us. Whatever the case, the hum refuses to be pinned down. It leaves no trace in the soil, it makes no mark on recordings, but it takes hold in the mind, and once it does, it rarely lets go. As the phenomenon gained international attention, so too did the divide between those who sought scientific answers and those willing to look beyond them. Traditional academics leaned on environmental explanations. They pointed to wind patterns interacting with structures, distant train lines vibrating through bedrock, or faulty electrical systems emitting subaudible resonance. Some suggested tinnitus or a mass case of heightened sound sensitivity. But these explanations often collapsed under scrutiny. The hum is not constant, it's not experienced by all. In fact, it follows no predictable logic. People living side by side, sharing walls, bedrooms, lives, often report entirely different experiences. One hears it, the other does not. The sound moves, it pulses, and it defies the basic principles of wave behavior. Then there are the people who used to hear it, and suddenly don't. No change in health, no relocation. Just silence, like someone flipped a switch. Psychologists, in turn, have tried to reframe the mystery as perception. Perhaps the hum is a form of auditory hallucination, magnified by anxiety, stress, or subconscious expectation. And yet MRI scans and cognitive tests reveal no abnormalities in hearers, no neurological patterns, no signs of trauma or delusion. In many cases, these individuals are engineers, doctors, teachers, rational people with no history of psychosis. And then there are those who've spent years studying the hum, only to step back in frustration. Some researchers have withdrawn their papers entirely, citing inconsistencies in the data or pressure from institutional reviewers. Others have spoken off record about a culture of quiet censorship, that speaking too openly about the hum invites ridicule, or worse, silence. This silence isn't just academic. In some cases, government entities have shut down investigations without explanation. Residents of one Canadian town reported a sudden stop in funding for a community-wide acoustic study after a suspicious visit from federal contractors. No conclusion was ever published, no follow-up was permitted. What began as a public safety concern ended in bureaucratic invisibility. There is something deeply unsettling about a mystery that continues in plain sight, unacknowledged. It's not just the sound, it's the refusal to engage with it. The deafening quiet that follows every new report, every anomaly. The sense that the hum is not just ignored, but protected. Which raises a question that's harder to dismiss. If this phenomenon is so widespread and so deeply documented, why has it not entered the mainstream conversation? Why do the people most affected by it feel more isolated the more they speak? Why does the science seem so uninterested in the sound that no microphone can catch, but that won't stop ringing? And in that void, between science and silence, darker questions begin to form. Not just about sound, but about control. Not just about vibration, but about intention. It's in the speculative margins where the hum begins to morph into something far stranger, something less like a sound, and more like a signal. Theories that were once dismissed as fringe now draw interest not because they've become more plausible, but because conventional science has failed to produce an alternative. One of the more persistent ideas is that the hum is the byproduct of global surveillance infrastructure, massive networks of low-frequency transmissions meant for submarine communication, deep Earth imaging, or atmospheric manipulation. Technologies like HAARP, the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program in Alaska, are frequently cited, often without direct evidence, but with compelling circumstantial timing. Infrasound frequencies generated by such programs could, theoretically, bleed into the perceptible range under certain conditions, affecting only those biologically tuned to receive them. Others believe the hum could be a form of experimental weaponry, psychotronic interference designed to test behavioral control. This isn't pure science fiction. Declassified military documents reveal decades of research into sonic and electromagnetic weapons, tools that can agitate, disorient, or influence human behavior using invisible, inaudible energy. If such technology exists today in more advanced forms, the hum could be its residue, unintended or unsanctioned, but very real. Then there's the idea that the hum isn't technological at all, but environmental in a way we don't yet understand. That perhaps the Earth itself is shifting, not physically, but electromagnetically. Seismic data has shown that the planet emits a continuous low-frequency vibration, even in the absence of earthquakes. Some call it the Earth's hum. Could the recent rise in hum reports reflect a change in this baseline resonance? A warning signal of something geophysical that's already begun? And still, some push the boundaries even further. A growing minority of researchers and experiencers speculate that the hum may be an interdimensional bleed-through, evidence of overlapping realities vibrating at incompatible frequencies. If reality is not singular but layered, as some quantum physicists have theorized, then the hum might not be from here at all. It might be the background noise of somewhere else. Something brushing against our world, leaking through in tone, in tremor, in tension. There are those who believe the hum is a call, intended not for the general population but for a specific group. A signal meant to awaken, activate, or redirect a subset of humanity capable of hearing it. These theories verge on the mythic, echoes of chosen bloodlines, ancient memories, or encoded knowledge tied to resonance. And yet, even the most skeptical listener must pause when confronted with the sheer scale of the mystery. The same sound reported across the globe in different languages with the same emotional weight, dread, confusion, isolation. The feeling of being studied by something without a face. If the hum is a signal, the question becomes, what is it trying to say? And more unsettling still, what happens when someone finally understands it? As we widen the lens beyond isolated incidents, a broader pattern begins to take shape, one that connects the hum to other strange, persistent phenomena. Across continents and cultures, people have reported similar sensory disturbances for centuries, not just sound, but vibration, pressure, a feeling that reality itself is distorted. Reports from places like the Skinwalker Ranch in Utah describe low, pulsing frequencies coinciding with sightings of orbs, cryptids, and unexplained craft. In the remote Siberian wilderness, locals speak of the Earth's whisper, a constant vibration that stirs unease and foreshadows illness or madness. In Japan, some rural areas report the yanari, or night creaks, believed to be spirits or tremors from a realm just beyond perception. It's not just folklore. Infrasound has been shown to produce physical and emotional reactions even when the source is invisible. At 19 Hz, just below the range of human hearing, people have reported sudden feelings of dread, hallucinations, and a creeping sense of being watched. One experiment placed volunteers in a soundproof room while piping in infrasound. Some cried, others fled. None knew why. Now imagine this reaction not confined to a lab, but woven into the world, unnoticed yet inescapable. That's the hum, an ambient anomaly whose true scale we haven't begun to map. Some scientists have explored whether Earth's magnetic field is shifting more rapidly than anticipated. The magnetic North Pole has accelerated its drift in recent decades, and anomalies like the South Atlantic magnetic anomaly, where the field is weak, are growing in size. If our planet is humming, perhaps it's trying to recalibrate like a machine pushed past its limit. Could we be standing on a threshold of planetary change? Then there are the theories that link the hum to memory, specifically to buried memory. Researchers like Dr. Barry Taff, who studied poltergeist cases, propose that certain places retain emotional energy, like a recording etched into space itself. Could the hum be a playback loop from something ancient? Not just geological, but historical, sites where intense trauma, death, or change imprinted something permanent into the land? Some experiencers report hearing the hum only in proximity to ancient or sacred sites. Others feel drawn to places of power, ley line intersections, megalithic structures, former battlefields. These patterns are not random. They suggest a cartography we no longer recognize. One where history isn't recorded in books, but in frequency. And perhaps that's the greatest mystery of all. What if the hum isn't a warning or an attack or an accident? What if it's a remnant, a scar? Or worse, what if it's a language? A resonance left behind by something we no longer remember, something that's still speaking, and we've only just started to listen. The hum remains unsolved, unclaimed, unexplained. It's not a myth and it's not a theory. It's a reality for thousands of people who hear something that no one else can, who feel vibrations no machine records, and who are told repeatedly that nothing is wrong. It's the silence that unsettles most. Not the silence between the sounds, but the institutional silence, the media silence, the scientific silence. It's the refusal to acknowledge what so many have described with haunting clarity. And in that vacuum, the hum only grows, filling not just space but perception itself, becoming something more than a sound, becoming a presence. When you ask hearers to describe the hum, the words they use are telling. It's alive. It watches me. It's probing. These aren't just descriptions of noise. They're confessions of something deeply felt, yet impossible to define. a noise that isn't heard so much as known. That doesn't announce itself, but simply arrives. It's tempting to frame the hum as a phenomenon waiting to be solved, a puzzle requiring better microphones, smarter algorithms, or more precise sensors. But maybe that's the wrong lens. Maybe the hum isn't a signal from the outside, but a mirror of the inside. A reflection of our nervous system, our fears, our forgotten histories vibrating against the modern world's machinery. Or maybe it's the first note in a song we've forgotten how to hear. Throughout history, the greatest mysteries were never just problems to be solved. They were revelations, opportunities to see the world differently. The hum forces us to do just that. It asks us to listen, not just with our ears, but with our awareness, to hear the hidden layers beneath the surface, to recognize that even in the age of satellites and science, there are still frequencies we can't name. Still questions we can't answer, and perhaps we're not supposed to answer them. Perhaps we're only supposed to notice that something else is already speaking. Thanks for listening. This has been another episode of the Strange and Unexplained podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like to support the show, subscribe to the Strange and Unexplained podcast on Spotify. Subscribe now.